Goodness. Well, let's bring back our powerhouse panel member of Project 21, Donna Jackson, political analyst Mark Halperin, and former Trump campaign aide Rick Gates. Now, Rick, I'll start with you. President Biden was in Georgia touting his first 100 days in office. Take a listen.
We promised to deliver emergency relief to the millions of Americans who are in financial distress, and I might add, through no fault of their own. So we got out $1,400 checks to the American people, and we kept that promise. 85% of the households in America have gotten those checks. We've already sent out more than 160 million checks out the door.
So, Rick, I mean, I don't know where to start here because we've spent over $5 trillion in COVID relief. Yes, President Biden, I think the only thing we agree with the statement is that through no fault of their own, the American people have been hammered. But all the checks haven't even arrived yet. And in 100 days, the Biden administration seems to believe that all of the GDP growth that's occurred is because of them and them alone.
Well, and you look at the greater issue, and that's that the Biden administration believes they can buy their way out of all of America's problems. And I think that's going to put an immense weight on future generations to figure out how to pay this. I mean, I don't think it was any mistake they were calling Joe Biden the $6 trillion man. You can't continue to spend like this. And I think more importantly, though, is you look at his rhetoric and you look at the rhetoric of Kamala Harris, there are a lot of talk and very little action. And I think if I hear Kamala Harris say one more time, fixing the border issue is not an issue that can be solved overnight. Well, they've had 100 days and they haven't done anything to fix the border issue. So the more that they continue to punt on these, critical issues to the American people, the more that the Democrats are going to, I think, suffer in the 2022 midterms. And this is just another instance of that, where Biden is continually promising financial gain for everybody at the expense of raising your taxes.
Mark, I'll come to you. You look at the rapid rate of spending here, to Rick's point, basically trying to buy their way to prosperity. I mean, you talk about FDR. I mean, this is the New Deal on steroids. I mean, this is multiple New Deals. The spending that has occurred and the spending that is being proposed. Is this going to have a negative impact for the average American who looks at this and says, what in the world is happening?
Well, the Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer operation has one thing going for them here, which is the economy is going well right now. And so if they raise taxes, if they increase spending and the economy doesn't take a hit, then they're going to be able to argue, they believe that all these ideas are what help the economy and that the American people want these programs. And giving away money is popular. Taxing the very wealthiest is popular. Republicans have their work cut out for them to try to explain why this stuff isn't in the best interest of America. But they've got a big head of steam up right now, and they're going to try to pass as much as they can. And it's going to be, if they get it done, it's going to be multiple trillions.
Now, Don, on a slightly more lighthearted note, yesterday the president had a hard time with his mask. Take a look.
Looking for my mask. I'm in trouble.
So, I mean, this brings me back to where we were with the joint address that wasn't a joint address because the audience was practically empty. You have a vaccinated president standing next to a vaccinated first lady, standing next to vaccinated members of the Secret Service outside where the audience is also social distancing, and the president still with the virtue signaling. At some point, is this going to backfire? At some point, do the people recognize that the president is basically playing games for the purposes of trying to gain political capital?
They already recognize that. He's sending this message that, even though you're vaccinated, we need to still control you. I mean, what message does that send? That the vaccination doesn't work? But, the nerve of him going to Georgia, talking about what they've done for the economy when he cost minority businesses there over $100 million. You have minority businesses that have inventory that they purchased for a Major League Baseball game. And now they're stuck with that inventory. They're at a loss. And, people are going to recognize the fact that, they might give out $1,400, but how much money do people lose? And people are still losing money. And the only reason why this economy is as strong as it is because of the policies from the previous administration. So I don't believe that $1,400 solves millions of dollars. There was 110,000 restaurants that closed. That doesn't solve that problem. You have $1,400
Right.
versus a whole generation of wealth that's been lost
Right.
for millions of Americans in this country.
Absolutely.
That doesn't solve that.
Absolutely. I want to switch gears here a little bit, Mark. We had Vice President Pence down in South Carolina. He said there's a lot of work to do in this country. Take a listen.
We need to defend state-based reforms, support voter ID, and work every day to restore the confidence of every American in every vote. And with our agenda and our movement, we will always stand by the men and women who serve on the thin blue line of law enforcement.
Sounds like a man gearing up to run for president to me. Mark, from your perspective, what are the things that Mike Pence should be doing right now to make sure that he has a pathway to have that option preserved for him in 2 years if he chooses to take it?
Yeah, look, vice presidents, former vice presidents in both parties have a great track record in American history of becoming their party's nominee for president. But one of the things they have to do is to get people to kind of think anew about them. Moving from that number 2 job to number 1 job is not automatic. I think Mike Pence is a former member of the House, a former governor, very policy oriented. And that speech had a lot of ideas in it and talked about the importance of critiquing the current administration through the prism of conservative ideas. So I think what Mike Pence is going to do is what he's always succeeded for him, which is talking about Indiana values, Hoosier values, and talking about ideas that he thinks make a difference. And I think that'll stand him in pretty good stead because there are not many people who can compete with him in that realm.
Rick, quickly, I got about 30 seconds here. To Mark's point, vice presidents do often become the nominee. Vice presidents rarely actually become the president. What do you think Vice President Pence needs to do here to make sure that he can actually beat the patterns of history?
Well, the best thing that you can have is critiquing a record. And what Mike Pence is going to do is attack the Biden administration record. And that's going to resonate with the American people well. And if the former vice president can continue on that path, he's going to continue building that grassroots support. And he's going to have to be very clear about his issues and his policies and where he stands, because that ultimately is going to lead those American voters, the Republican voters, to his cause. And with the crowded field and unknown what the former President Trump is going to do, it's going to be a very interesting race.
All right, gonna have to leave it there. Thanks to our panel again. Always a great conversation.